Thank you for tuning in to No Sudden Moves Radio. And remember, stay on the proven path so you don't risk falling behind. Here at Business Legends, we don't overthink it. Look around and see what everyone else is doing. If it's working for them, it will work for you.
Welcome to Wait It Out, where we believe there's no reason to act now. The opportunity will still be there when the timing is better.
The age of disruption isn't coming, it's here. And the boldest move isn't following the crowd, it's following your why. I'm Patrick Ledden, and you're listening to Disruption Lab. Hey folks, welcome to the Disruption Lab podcast. My name is Patrick Ledden, and each week I have the opportunity to talk to you about disruptions, but I don't just do it by myself. I bring great guests into the conversation so we can talk about the disruptions in their life and my life and your life, all with one end in mind, to help us realize that the curveballs life throws at us doesn't have to define us. Yeah, disruption's a powerful force, but you know what? So are you. I'm joined today by Bree Groff. We're going to talk about her new book, Today Was Fun. And she and I were chatting about it before we got into the conversation today. And it was one of those situations where I was like, I better start hit record and get started on the recording because I'm already talking about some really cool stuff. So Bree, if you don't mind, let's talk a little bit about your background specifically, and then we'll tell a little bit about your story as we go forward. But specifically, you were telling me about a disruption in your life associated with your mom. Would you mind sharing a little bit?
Yeah, happy to. So, in 2022, my mother was diagnosed with a terminal cancer. I, at the time, was a partner at a consultancy, very busy, having a good time at work. But this was an asteroid that came into my life. My father already had Alzheimer's. And so I messaged my company. I said, I'm out for the foreseeable future, and then spent the next 9 months caring for my mom until she passed later that year. It was the most profound experience of my life, and obviously very hard in many ways. But what was pretty amazing is that it brought a lot of things into perspective, namely just how finite our days are. So I am there in Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center with my mom, going to appointments and chemo and immunotherapy, and surrounded by all of these beautiful humans who are just yearning for more days. Now, contrast that with the other half of my life, which is my professional community and friends who are checking in. And I'm saying, oh, how are you? How are things going? And they're telling me, oh, can we just get to the end of the week? I cannot wait till it's Friday. I can't wait till it's the end of the month. Wishing away the work week. And it just felt like this is an emergency, that we are wishing away the very finite, human days of our lives, the time that we have on this planet. And it's because of work, because we're thinking about work in a way that's either a necessity, like we just got to get through the week so we can earn the paycheck, or I'm trying to do something great, but it's hard and it's a struggle. And so therefore I'm enduring it. And I felt that it could be somewhere in the middle, because what was most important to me at the time of taking care of my parents was, it's not that me and my parents cried that whole time. Like, we had a lot of fun. What it really put into perspective is that I'm going to have 9 months with my mom. Those are going to be a kick-ass 9 months. And they were. We lived it up in New York like nothing else. And it made me realize that there was a message to be shared with anyone working, that work too can be fun, that it can be a good use of your days on the planet, that you can actually look forward to the work week, which seems like such a almost subversive point of view in a world that is all about TGIF.
Yeah, as you and I were talking about this leading into the conversation, I was sharing how my own perspective about work has changed over time. I mean, I was probably early on in my career for sure, very much pouring my best self into my work. And a lot of my time into my work. And I definitely was in the mindset and still am to some degree that, my life is fulfilled in so many ways by the work I do. And that much of my purpose can be found in my work. And hopefully it's helping other people in their lives as well. But I think sometimes I got that balance a little too far to the one side and
Yeah.
to the detriment of relationships and missing things and certain things like that. But then there's that other side of, well, like you said, TGIF, or hey, I just work because I need a paycheck. And I like the idea that it's somewhere in the middle. And maybe everybody, I don't know, you tell me, everybody kind of has to figure out what that recipe looks like for themselves.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I'm always a fan of if it works for you, it works for you. And there are some people who love working all the time. If that is legitimately true for you, then go for it. There are some people for whom work is a means to an end. If that works for you, that's great. But what I have found for myself, and I think what is possible to be true for a lot more people, is that it does fall somewhere in the middle between the ends of the spectrum. As you said, on one end, which is I work for the paycheck, work is drudgery, work is called work for a reason.
Mhm.
And the other end of the spectrum, which I would say is an over reliance on purpose, meaning, fulfillment, like work is going to fulfill all of my deepest desires. This is my purpose on the planet. Again, that could be a really beautiful thing, but it's often mired in this perspective of I need to overwork and it's going to be worth it in the end. And I'm going to pour myself into this meaningful work because of the impact that I'm creating in the world. In the meantime, sacrificing your health, your sleep, your family, the rest of your life. I think there can be somewhere in the middle where work is just fun. Like
Well, it feels like in both sides of
that's it.
those sides of those extremes, there is a bit of um, not enjoying the moment or not being in the moment. Whether it's I'm living for Friday because then I can do the stuff I want to do over the course of the weekend, and then I'll have to reload on Monday and live to the next Friday type of thing. Or
Yes.
I'm laying it on all this amazing railroad track so that someday it's going to take me to an amazing destination. And in the meantime, I just have to deal with the drudgery of all this.
Oh my, Patrick, that's exactly right. Because what I've learned is important is, are you having a good day today? There's that beautiful Annie Dillard quote, the way you spend your days is, of course, the way you spend your life. The book is called Today Was Fun for this reason, that if you can say on most days of your life, at the end of the day, today was fun, you won. Like you've won at life. Like that is a pretty good life if you're saying that most days. And what that requires is valuing your presence in the moment, just as you said, not living for the weekend and also not living for your legacy 10, 20, 30 years down the line, that it's going to be worth it when I look back. What I'm curious about and why I wrote the book is, how do we have more good days today, which is the only day we have to be alive. Today is we're not yet alive tomorrow. Yesterday has already gone. Today is the day that you have. So
Mhm.
how do we make the most of that in a way that is fulfilling and social and fills you up just in the ways that you like. Whether that be I love work because it gives me a challenge and I love solving challenges, or whether you love work because you love your colleagues, or and anything in between. But what does a good day really look like for you?
Do you find that sometimes people don't even think about that? Like they don't even take the time to figure out like what is a good day at work? What is a fun day at work? Why does it all matter to me anyway? Or do we just kind of get into the flow of things and we don't even realize why we're doing them?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, absolutely. 'Cause I think it's a problem of how we view ourselves in relationship to work, which is, I think, the vast majority of, I think, businesses and therefore employees think of humans as human resources. They are the input to the business, such that the business can then create, impact and product, services, money, and all of that. When we think of ourselves as the input, we don't care about inputs. We don't care about the quality of life of the inputs. We're just, a business is structured such that you want to maximize the effectiveness of your resources. So when I'm thinking of myself as my time is the input to a paycheck that will come out the other side, or my time is the input to some future legacy or some business impact, in that process, we undervalue the experience of of being that resource. So it's really a distinction between, are we viewing ourselves as human resources, or are we viewing ourselves as humans who deserve to enjoy our days, even if it's a Monday?
No, that makes sense. Take us back, if you don't mind, Bree. So when your mom became ill, and you said you went through a 9 month or so period, there was obviously the disruption of her health, or diagnosis, and having to kind of deal with that. There was also sound like there was a bit of disruption going on in your mind when you were thinking about how we spend our time. So how did that turn into the book project?
So I had wanted to write a book for a while, even pre-COVID, and I had sort of had this inkling, like there's a book inside me. It's like knocking to get out. There was just never really a time for it. Right? Like I was busy in consulting, and I now have a 10-year-old daughter. She was younger then, and um, one of the, I mean, I would never want to do it again, but given my mom's diagnosis and then passing, one of the gifts of that situation was I did have more time. When I finally did go back to consulting, I went back part-time. We sort of refinagled our family finances to make that possible. And because now I had all of these like fresh learnings and the luxury of some time, the irony of that disruption in my life is that like there was time and space for something really beautiful to bloom out of that, which was for me the book. And I hope then, when it's out in the world and people are reading it, that they can also benefit, that's also the harvest from that time of that really hard time in my life.
I was at a wedding this weekend, and I was talking to some friends I hadn't seen in a long time. So these were parents of the children, kind of the child group. Like, so my son was the best man for his friend, and
Aw.
their kid was another groomsman. So we hadn't seen each other for a while, but we were kind of parents of these children as they grew up. And we were sitting together at the table, and the gentleman of the couple, he was recently retired from being an airline pilot. And as we were talking about things, they said a couple things that just really resonated to me. See if this makes sense.
Mhm.
What you
Yeah.
were just talking about, because you said I would never want to have to do that again, but there's a gift that came out of it. And my friend, she was talking about how there's a book in her around the
Mhm.
idea of the gifts that we don't want to get in life, but in retrospect, we realize the value of them. And then they were going on to say this thing, like they have one child who lives out in California, and they said, we're getting older. Maybe we kind of like to fly a little bit closer toward the front of the plane than the back of the plane, because it's a little bit easier on us to get on and off. Seats are a little bit more comfortable. And she said that their financial planner said, well, either you fly up toward the front of the plane, or someday your kids will. And I just thought it was kind of interesting, but the point was they were talking all about this whole idea of like the last quarter of their life and what they're going to do and all these type of things. And it just got me thinking about when she said the idea that there's some gifts in your life that you don't want to get, but when you get them, you realize there's value in them. Is that kind of how you look at the time that you went through?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Stoicism. There's a lot of it running through the book. And in Stoicism, there's this concept, and perhaps you've heard, called amor fati, which means to love your fate. And this is in contrast to enduring your fate, like the whole, like you accept the things you cannot change. Like, okay, I accept this. But it takes it further to say, if this is going to be my fate, how can I love it? There's another concept, Ryan Holiday has the book, The Obstacle is the Way. So instead of skirting the obstacle or wishing it weren't there, use that obstacle as the path forward. Pick up that rock and carry it with you. And I think that was absolutely true. Some days I'm like, how did I even get to this perspective? Because there's still part of me that just wants to like flail around and be angry about it. But truly, like moving through that time, it felt like the faster I can just come to acceptance of this is the situation. This is the diagnosis. I do not have the power to save my mother. It's not for me to do. What is it for me to do? Well, how can I love this time as much as possible? So as I mentioned, like we spent too much money dining in fancy New York restaurants. We would have smoothie day and walk to the park. We just had so much fun over that time. So the time itself with my mom and with my dad was really beautiful. And I found myself being really grateful that she wasn't like hit by a bus one day.
Mhm.
Like I had this time to really focus on her. And then it was like, well, what gifts could come out of this? Because in anything, you take the good with the bad, but don't leave the good on the table. Like if you're
Yeah.
forced to take the bad, like God, get it.
Yeah.
And so the good was like, I have a newfound perspective about the end of life and how amazing is it that I have that now in middle life before I reach that time. I have not only that perspective, but a career's worth of learning about how to have a good day at work through all my consulting experience in culture and employee engagement. Why don't I put those things together and create something of value in the world? Why don't I also like learn to have a good time writing a book? And I did. I had the best time writing this book. And so, yeah, there was all, it's like you sort of compost your life, right?
Mhm.
Like the things that go in the scraps then become the nutrients for the next season's blooms. And I found that was very much the case.
I love that expression too. Compost your life. That's beautiful. One of the facts we talk about in our research, and then it went into our book, was the fourth fact is the idea that time here, your time here is finite. Make it count.
Hmm.
Make it count in ways that matter, is what we say, and that's a fundamental fact around being an effective disruptor. And we feel like that's true not just your time on the planet, but also your time in your work or whatever it might be. Make it count in ways that matter. I'm just curious. Okay, so you got into writing the book. Let's kind of unpack the book a little bit. So typically when you're in the process of writing a book, and I love that you said you had fun while you were doing it. I need to spend more time talking to you maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
sometimes I don't know, putting those words on the paper and the next day deleting them all doesn't always feel fun, but nonetheless,
Yeah.
that's part of the process.
Yep.
So when you're writing something like this, you're oftentimes thinking about like who will read it and what will they do with it and how will they see in it what I was trying to put in, or will they find value in it that I didn't even expect people would see in it that was valuable? All that type of stuff kind of goes through your mind. You picture people holding it in their hands. So when you were writing it, what was going through your mind about like who did you see using it and how did you see it helping them?
Yeah. So I think of, I guess, in demographic terms, like a millennial-ish sort of mid-career manager who maybe has some kids at home, maybe has other caregiving responsibilities, is, middle management. So they're trying to like sort out what's happening above them. Maybe they have one direct report or a small team. They're trying to do all the things you're supposed to do,
Mhm.
exercise, sort of eat healthy, sort of have a social life, take care of the, little ones or other ones around you, try and do a good job, try and get the promotion. And that person in that sort of crucible of caregiving of life, not just like personal caregiving, but caring about the team, caring about the business, caring about, all those things, they may not be having a lot of fun. And I've met, and even through consulting, interviewed hundreds and hundreds of employees who are in that moment of I'm not having a lot of fun. And so I think about them, the person who has, again, they don't have to have a whole team, but like some sphere of influence or some control over how they spend their days. And how can I give them some perspective and some tools that make, as we were talking about, not their legacy better in 10 years and not just like a higher salary for a higher paycheck, but how can I help them have a better day today? And so, what are some of the principles that I've learned help make that true? And that really became the chapters of the book. So, there's one about camaraderie, because sometimes laughing with friends at work, that makes it a good day, even if everything else is kind of going to shit. There's one chapter about doing really brilliant work. And to your point about disruption, like there's no time for like making the deck look normal. Like say your crazy brilliant idea. Like let's see if that'll work. Uh, so all of the different chapters sort of comprise that philosophy of how you can have those better days at the office, such that also you're having better days outside the office as well.
As you were talking about that, I was thinking, I'm sure there's people listening to this right now going, yeah, Bree, I understand completely what you're saying. I have that all those responsibilities at work, all those responsibilities at home. I feel like I'm in the crucible, as you mentioned, with all this going on. I love the idea. Today was fun. I'll encourage you folks, if you're listening, you're thinking that, go online, order, copies in triplicate, hand them out to your friends, whatever it might be. But in this moment, as they're listening to this right now, before the book shows up or they run out to the store to grab it or whatever, what would you say to somebody that's feeling that would help them all of a sudden turn maybe today, make it a little bit more fun, or maybe kind of hit the dimmer switch on the I can't wait till Friday arrives? What would be something like practical that somebody can just start to do? Because sometimes when you start to do
Yeah.
something, you start to get momentum, and momentum drives your motivation, and it just kind of builds from there.
So I recently published a Substack article called 20 Short Rules for Better Days at Work. It's sort of like a little microcosm of the book. So I can share a few of the tips from there. So one is the concept of yutori, which I'm probably butchering, a Japanese concept of arrive someplace early enough to be able to look around. And I find so often we're in back to backs, like, oh, sorry, I was just running from this meeting. Like, you don't have time to pee during the day or like refill your coffee. Can you find a moment where you're going to show up to an appointment, a meeting, whatever it is, 3 minutes early? So you can take a breath. If there's someone else there, you can chat with them. It just gives an otherwise sort of hairy day a sense of peace. So that's one. Another one of my favorites is play some music that came out the year that you turned 18. I find like music is such an immediate mood shifter. And so if you can play it in headphones, if maybe that's more appropriate, or you're working from home, if you're in the office, even better, right? Because I think it helps to normalize ageism, to just like be an age and like, oh, this came out the year I turned 18. Like, oh, that's so amazing. There is nothing more energizing than your teenage music. I just firmly believe this. Like there's something about it that makes you feel like a teenager again and will boost your mood. So that's just like a really simple one. Anyway, there's 18 more of those.
No, those are great. Those are great. I would think about like how many times have I been in meeting rooms, for example, when I mean like in a physical meeting room where I might be there many times over the course of many weeks, many months, and yet I could not tell you one thing that's hanging on the wall in that room. And
Yeah.
if I could tell you what was on the wall, I would have no idea why it was there, or what the inscription was below it, or any of that
Yeah.
type of stuff. I just haven't taken the time to do that.
Hmm.
I admit, wholeheartedly, I have been the guy who will run from one meeting to another, or you stack Zoom meetings up where there's literally no break to go to the bathroom,
Yes.
right? So there is no moment to, I might even say like, I love working at home because I am around my dogs. Oh yeah, when's the last time you pet them, or what? You know what I mean? That type of
Yes.
thing, right? You're just kind of,
Hmm.
and then to think about like going to client locations or going to new cities or whatever it might be, and just be like, oh, I jump on planes, I jump off planes, well, why don't you show up 10 minutes early and appreciate the beautiful decor that they put in
Yes.
their entrance hallway that somebody probably put a ton of time in for you to enjoy, and you're
Hmm.
not doing it because you're racing from one thing to another. I love that
Yeah.
concept. I'm gonna do that myself. I've
You
actually
should.
I'm
Yeah.
actually speaking to a group tomorrow here in my hometown in Nashville. I know exactly where the hotel's at. I've been to it and spoke to different groups, talked to different groups over the years. I don't know. I couldn't describe the inside of that, the hallway very well. I'm gonna do it tomorrow. I promise you, Brie. I'm gonna go look at it and just see what's
Yes.
there before I walk into the room, because you just get so laser focused. And I don't think it would be something that would cause me to go, oh, because I did that, I didn't do as well on stage that day. I think it'd be like, actually, I probably did better because I wasn't, a hurried mess running in the door type of thing.
Yeah.
Or even if I was plenty early, I just went in and sat in the back of the room. Okay, you could have given up 2 minutes to do that. So I love that one. And then play music from when you were younger. Yeah, there'll be a lot of probably Depeche Mode being played in my house or
Yeah.
something
Love
like that from
it.
back in the day. But there's some fun value. And I think if other people in the workplace are doing that type of thing, boy, you do get to kind of know each other in different ways, don't you?
Yeah. It's just a way to say I value my own joy at work, because it's not functional to play music. Like that is for your fun. And I just think it's a statement that my enjoyment on this day matters. And so do yours, colleagues, and you're getting to know each other, and it's just hard not to bop a little bit, so you're moving. And um It's an easy one, super effective.
Do you think people who knew you, I don't know, I don't want to put years on this, but in the past,
Hmm.
and worked with you in the past, would see a different version of you working today than they saw before? Or have these been things that you kind of picked up along the way? In other words, was there a kind of turn of the page moment for you, or have you always been kind of assembling these ideas?
I've the latter. I've always been sort of assembling these ideas. I I know that there are a lot of people who have written books on, culture and enjoying your work and life more that had some sort of burnout moment and that's when I realized it all fell apart and then I like
Mhm.
gave up the high flying career. I never had one of those actually. Like my mom's diagnosis was that sort of moment for me. But even before that, I was having a lot of fun at work. And I think that's important to share and model for the world that you don't have to reach a point of burnout of like I was
Yeah.
running super hot before you can then get to the other side of a life of balance and joy that actually it's you can start your career that way and because I've loved every company I've worked for. I've loved all my I mean I had like stressful and hard days some days, like anybody. But on the whole, like I never really got to that point of burnout. And I think that's also what I'm trying to normalize with the book is that you don't have to get there in order to get somewhere better. You can just start today,
Yeah,
having a
because we,
little bit more
the,
balance and
we
fun.
have those stories, right, where it's like this is the arc of a typical story.
Hmm.
Watch it on the Hallmark channel or something, but you just know it's like poured everything into their work, had some massive
Yes.
burnout, hit rock bottom, gained some insight, or were enlightened by something, a stranger on a train or whatever, and then they,
Yeah.
but I actually like the idea that kind of what I hear you saying is that in the disruptions that you were going through, you realized that other people really weren't doing this. Like just hearing people talk about their work and what was going on, and the ability to say, okay, I can take not only what I've been doing well in the past, and also what I'm doing extremely well, going through this walk with my mother and my father. Also, the ability to go and I can help the other people on their journeys. That's a pretty cool thing, and I love that it doesn't have to be the no, I've had a good life. I can do more and do it better and help other people along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I learn new things every day about how to be a better human and how to have a better day. But yeah, on the whole, I've always cared about creating really cozy teams. I've cared about my own experience of work and having fun. And so, yeah, the book is really, well, how do I know how to do that? And so that's sort of my unpacking of like, how do I know? And then, and it has the practices and the stories and the research and all the rest.
What would you say to somebody who they read the book or they listen to this conversation and they're like, yeah, I'd want to have more fun days. I want my work to be better. And I can work within my circle of influence a bit, but the
Hmm.
reality is at this point either it's real or I perceive it to be real that my boss wouldn't be open to this idea, my peers wouldn't be open to this idea. They wouldn't think I'm serious if I start to do some of these things. What would you say to them? Because there's always that I got to keep this mask on.
Yeah. So the business mask is real and something I rail against in the book because it's no good for anybody. It's not good for business because people are hiding their best ideas, trying to make their work look kind of normal. It's definitely no good for inclusion. It's no good for having a good day, right? The fact that you have to put on your suit and your business mask as your last accessory. So I have one tool and one sort of mindset I can share. I'll start with the mindset. The mindset is be the rebel. You be subversive in the tiniest ways possible, in ways that feel safe. So there's a part in the book that, I admit, like the section might sort of sound like I'm trying to get you fired by doing all of these like playful things. If if it doesn't feel safe at work to be fun and yourself, what are some of the small things that you can try? So if you work in finance or something, can you wear your button down, but it has a little flamingo print on it? I don't know. Can you like throw an emoji in your email? Or like one of my favorites is if you're in an in-person meeting, can you like fold up your legs or stand up and walk around a little bit? Sometimes our body language can set a whole different tone for a meeting. like I often say, I'm convinced there's no psychological safety in a room with perfect posture. And so when everyone is like sitting up, it's like, can you start doodling a picture of a frog? You know, like something to cut the performative professionalism. So that's sort of the mindset. Can you be a tiny rebel in
Yeah,
that space?
and can you start to normalize that a little bit? Yeah.
Yes. And also, what I find is that people are attracted to that. Like people, I wrote another piece on these, I call them give no shits role models, or people, everyone has a few in their life where you're like, that person is themselves. Like that person is unapologetically themselves more than most. And those people are magnetic in a way. Like I'm drawn to people who show up in the fullness of their humanity because it gives me some implicit permission to do the same. So if I can't find those people in a room, I decide I'm going to be that person in the room and try and create a little bit of a culture of like, I'm doodling my frog. Okay, good. So then you can go doodle your lizard next to me. And now we're like having a bit better time. Yeah, so that's one sort of the mindset. The tool that I would offer, my very first go-to tool to sort of humanize the workplace, take off your business masks, is this ritual called a check-in, which you can do at the top of any meeting. You could do it once a day if you do a stand-up or once a week. And all it is one person says, all right, how is everybody? On a scale of 1 to 5 or 0 to 5, we're going to hold up our hands. 3, 2, 1, shoot. Maybe you can't see me, but I'm holding up like a 5. You hold up a 3. And then in 30 seconds, you just run around the room and say why. So like, I'm a 3 because like I'm a little bit nervous about this meeting coming up later today. It could also be personal. Like I'm a 4 because my birthday's this weekend, but like -1 because I threw out my back a little bit. Or like I'm a 2 because I got a new puppy and the puppy was up late last night barking. Whatever it is, this takes all of like 5 minutes at the top of a meeting, but it's amazing the sort of phase change of how people relate to each other then, because all of a sudden we're humans doing business. We're not business people doing business, and just makes all the difference. So if, anyone listening does have, a direct report, you could do this in a one-on-one or even like a small team you can do this with. Just do it at the top of the meeting, try and do it regularly, and then just see the enormous snowball effect of how people start to view each other without their business masks on. And then it starts to seep into the rest of the work as well. Like if I know you got a new puppy because we did this little finger shoot thing and the check-in, now I want to see pictures, and now I'm seeing like a picture of your kid in the background and now we're kind of friends. So a very simple tool that goes a long way.
I've done those kind of fist to 5 type of things, 0
Yes,
to 5 type
exactly,
of things.
exactly.
And one thing that's really great about those is that because you just go, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and then do it type of thing. There's not a lot of looking around to see what other numbers people throw. And we still do that because, well, what did the boss say or what did so and so say? But it's like, no, just do it. And it's like a visceral move. It's like you just react and do it, and it's just like it reveals something. And especially as your team becomes more trusting and you do it a few more times, people know it's okay to open up a little bit. That's that safety component you talked about earlier, as opposed to everybody's PowerPoint's perfect and everybody's wearing the exact same pair of shoes type of thing. That's just the funny thing is that I notice a lot of times is even in some of the organizations I've been in, I was in the Army for 10 years. So, I mean, you can get a lot of rigidity there. I was in KPMG consulting. There's a lot of rigidity there, even the university at times. But is that one-on-one, like as a colleague talking to my friends or even talking to my boss, you get like this one glimpse of them. And then when you put them all in the room, they become this whole other different group of people when they're interacting together. I think there's just a lot of beauty in kind of recognizing that they're individuals, and together we can kind of bring our fun best self sometimes. We can do really cool stuff in the process. Well, Bree, this has been a really cool conversation. I appreciate you doing this, and congratulations on the new book. Seriously, folks, pick up a copy of Today Was Fun. It's in bookstores, it's online, anywhere you go to get the books, you can pick up the book there. And actually, as we're recording this, I should say Today Was Fun. If folks are looking online, my dog literally just dropped this ball in my lap. It's a bright multicolored ball. So he wants to have some fun. So we probably should wrap up our conversation, Bree. But thank you so much for joining us in the Disruption Lab. And folks, thanks for joining us as well. I hope you enjoyed the conversation I had with Bree. And I encourage you to think about how you can bring a little bit more fun to your work and to the work of your colleagues. I think that at the end of the day, Stephen Covey used to say, no one wishes they spent more time in the office on their deathbed. And there's probably a lot of truth in that. And there's certainly a lot of truth. And if they did spend a lot of time in the office, hopefully they enjoyed it along the way. So, Bree, I wish you all the best. And those of you listening, I'm Dr. Patrick Ledden. Go make it a great day.